Hello everyone, I'm Michael, and today, I'm going to tell you a story. Why did you cheat on your partner? Story 1. So simply put, she cheated on me, so I cheated back. Age when story started 20 to age now 30. The story gets a lot more dramatic. I worked as a pizza delivery guy at the time. I came home from work one day with chocolates and flowers for her. We had been together for 5 years at this point, and she was screwing another guy in our bed. As soon as I entered my apartment and heard sex noises, I knew. I snuck into the frame of my bedroom door and witnessed the act with my own 2 eyes. They never even noticed I was there. I was so hurt by the situation, which I should have confronted head-on, that I left my own house and went to my buddy's house and smoked a blunt. He told me I should let her know I caught her and see how she reacted, but I didn't. I was just trying to rationalize what I did wrong a lot. Several hours later, I returned home, gave her the chocolate and flowers, and continued like nothing was wrong. I was a fool. Needless to say, she got ready for her job, which was a night shift security guard, and left around 7 p.m. I sat there for several hours crying after she left. Around 1000 p.m., our roommate called and asked if I could come up to her job and see what was going on with her car. The roommate is also my significant other's best friend. I went up there, figured out the issue with that POS car, and got her back to the house. The battery cable was messed up, if anyone was wondering. After the roommate got home, she cooked dinner, spaghetti and garlic bread. I ate and sat on the couch. I proceeded to stay on that couch knowing what had occurred in my bed earlier during the day. About 300 a.m., I had the biggest emotional breakdown. I began crying to the point I could no longer breathe. As I sat in the dark crying, the roommate came and sat down beside me, pulled my head into her lap, and rubbed my head. I'm not quite sure how long we stayed there like that, but I eventually fell asleep. Woke up the following day on the couch with my significant other waking me up. I proceeded to go through this day as well, holding in my emotions like an idiot. After she left for work again around 7 p.m., I just sat there for hours. Eventually that evening, I wrote a letter addressing my feelings and the cheating. It was about 3 pages long. The roommate came in shortly after 10 p.m. and did her evening routine, showering and all that. What happened next surprised me. As I lay on the couch, she came and began to talk to me. She stated she could tell something was wrong. So I told her about the cheating that I had witnessed and all that. I think she was in utter shock because she didn't say anything for like 10 minutes after I told her. The roommate asked me, "Do you wanna fuck me to get back at her?" I never answered yes, I just jumped on her. We did many different things that night. I also had a new experience with girls who like to be choked. So here is the part where shit goes down. Still not the craziest part. I fell asleep on the couch after that night only to be woken up by arguing around 07:00 hours. My significant other had gotten home and her and the roommate were arguing. The roommate confronted my so about cheating. The words that came out of the roommate's mouth next were stupid. "That's why I let your man fill me up while you were working, bitch." Ooh, those are fighting words. Well, that is exactly what happened, a fight. The fight carried on with me trying to break it up, to no avail. Entry was then made by 2 cops. Found out later that the neighbors called because they could hear it. Roommate got tased. So got tackled, both of them went to jail. Several hours later, the roommate returned after her mother bonded her out. She told me we would talk about this situation later and left for work. My significant other then came by with her sister and dad around 1100 p.m. that night and packed all her clothes and other property. I also had her take the bed because I didn't want it. She left that evening only saying, "I guess in breaking up with you." I just shook my head yay and she left. So we're gonna fast forward a little to about 8 months later. Little tidbit: roommate got pregnant from our one night stand. The roommate was also still staying with me still. Roommate goes into labor. I take her to the hospital, and after 14 glorious hours of labor, we welcomed our beautiful daughter into this world. After my daughter was born, I went outside to smoke a cigarette, and across the parking lot, I noticed someone who looks quite familiar loading a baby in a pickup truck. I was about 400 feet across a parking lot. At night, I shrugged it off. Sure, I was over-analyzing the situation. I had myself convinced it wasn't my ex. Well, I was wrong. About 3 months later, I get served with some civil paperwork from an attorney requesting I submit to a paternity test. After looking through all the paperwork with an attorney of my own, He was able to provide me with a date the child was born, which was a day before my daughter's birth. I knew then I'd see her at the hospital that day. I took the paternity test. I was indeed the father. After a lengthy child custody case, I pay $420 a month in child support and get my son 2 weekends out of the month. I'm also married to the roommate and have a 7-year-old daughter and son now. I did indeed feel like a piece of shit how that whole incident unfolded. But I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. A little advice: communication in a relationship is key. Also, if you don't want no babies, use protection. Although don't cheat. It's just not good. Story 2. Because I truly had no idea what a healthy or functional relationship looked like. My parents were married for almost 30 years and had already started the cycle of cheating on each other well before I was born. My grandma used to tell me stories of being friends with my grandpa's girlfriends because she just wasn't toxic and jealous like other women. In the relationship where I cheated, I was being treated like garbage, financially supporting us both even though I was 10 years younger and a waitress, enduring a lot of abuse from a very broken man. I felt trapped in the same cycle I had watched my mom and my grandma live. I didn't really know better. A guy at work started paying attention to me, and I loved it. He was sweet and poetic and romantic, committed to helping his sister raise his niece, was out of the house and working instead of drinking my paycheck away and punching holes in my walls. A little harmless work flirting quickly escalated, and before I knew it, I was having a whole ass affair. I started to prepare myself to leave my boyfriend for my affair partner. When I found out that my boyfriend had been cheating on me with anyone he could find on Craigslist, including stealing money from me to pay sex workers, any guilt I felt for cheating evaporated right then. I threw all my clothes in a trash bag and drove to my affair partner's house, ready to start our new life together. He had another girl over, basically admitted that a lot of what he had said to me was because he thought I would never leave. All in all, it was a mess. If you're unhappy in your relationship, do the work that will either fix it or get you out. That new person is flawed too. They won't fix you or fulfill you, only you can do that. Story 3. Because my wife told me that she was no longer interested in having sex with me. She didn't want me having it with anyone else, and she forbade me from watching porn or masturbating. I still did the latter, but we could never discuss it or she'd freak out. So to get my sexual needs met by someone other than myself, for several years, a few times per year, I paid a sex worker for a happy ending massage. This was still cheating, but I rationalized it as the mildest form of cheating possible. No chance of insta, no chance of an unwanted pregnancy, no emotional involvement. I knew it was wrong, but at the time I felt like it was my best choice out of several lousy choices. I realize now I should have just said at the time, I want a divorce. That's where we ended up anyway, and I would have saved myself, my wife, and our kids some needless pain over the years. By cheating on her and hiding it from her, I made it so much worse when she eventually found out. To cheaters on here, I would say, get out of your relationship. If you're cheating, you're clearly not happy. Do yourself and your partner a favor and just end it now before it all goes to hell. Story 4. I was bullied all throughout school, depressed, angry, so after school, when I started actually getting attention from women, I went nuts. My ego was exploding. I'd lie about where I was going, delete text messages, have alternate accounts, etc., etc. I thought I was sly. I wasn't. She knew. They always find out. I've changed a lot since, and thankfully, we're still together, but it hasn't been without its trials and tribulations. There are times I see the hurt in her eyes, and I wish I could take it all back, but at the same time, I really don't think I'd be where I'm at as a person today if it weren't for that experience. It took a lot for me to realize just what type of person I actually was, and I woke up one morning looking in the mirror and didn't like the person who was staring back at me. It was like an out-of-body experience where I didn't recognize myself, but I knew I hated what I was looking at. It's taken a lot, and I make sure I tell her every day that I love her, that I'll forever be hers for as long as she'll have me. But if she were to tell me tomorrow that she's done, I wouldn't hold it against her. She's my best friend. She's helped me grow as a person and been way more patient than she had to be, and I wish I could take what I know now, go back in time, and start all over, just so she wouldn't have that hurt and that doubt that I know is eating away in the back of her mind. She doesn't deserve it. Story 5. Because my wife told me that she was no longer interested in having sex with me. She didn't want me having it with anyone else, and she forbade me from watching porn or masturbating. I still did the latter, but we could never discuss it or she'd freak out. So to get my sexual needs met by someone other than myself, for several years, a few times per year, I paid a sex worker for a happy ending massage. This was still cheating, but I rationalized it as the mildest form of cheating possible. No chance of insta, no chance of an unwanted pregnancy, no emotional involvement. I knew it was wrong, but at the time I felt like it was my best choice out of several lousy choices. I realize now I should have just said at the time, I want a divorce. That's where we ended up anyway, and I would have saved myself, my wife, and our kids needless pain over the years. By cheating on her and hiding it from her, I made it so much worse when she eventually found out. To cheaters on here, I would say, get out of your relationship. If you're cheating, you're clearly not happy. Do yourself and your partner a favor and just end it now before it all goes to hell. Story 6. I came here to try and understand what goes on in someone's head when this happens because I've been cheated on sexually and emotionally. Instead, I'm just left feeling sorry for the people in this thread. So many people in such a dark place pulling their partners down to an equally dark place. I hope everyone here that has cheated has grown and gotten help, and that they can pursue a healthy and fulfilling relationship after they've grown past that. For the people that have been cheated on, I'm sorry all of you went through that, and I hope it never happens again. Sometimes it feels like something I'll never fully recover from, and other times I refuse to let past hurts ruin the chance of something good happening. So, I want the people who have been hurt by their partners cheating to know just because it's happened once doesn't mean it will again, and good things can still happen for you. Story 7. It's considered cheating in my case, but things led up to it which caused the incident. We were on the 4-year mark, and I was busy with a 9-to-5 and school. This didn't leave me much time aside from exercising and trying to make time for her. She liked to drink, but near the end, it got so bad. Communication prior to this was great, but seemed toxic when she started drinking heavily, being out all night, which led me despising her and not caring anymore. Knowing we were still in a relationship, I still made effort to talk, make time for her. It wasn't reciprocated and seemed like she didn't care to try. There would be points where I'd text her and she wouldn't reply back for 8 to 9+ hours, or in some instances, days. By the end, it seemed normal to me and made me believe that everyone would treat me like that. With the stress of all that I was doing, made me gain weight, and with her neglect, undesirable. At some point, I decided to focus on myself, and this was while we were still together. Kind of like we weren't together, but we're still in a relationship. I started going out with friends, meeting new people. It was during this period I met someone and we clicked. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but along with other people, her and I exchanged numbers. Whenever we exchanged messages, she responded instantly and seemed like she wanted to talk to me. This was still while my then was being aloof, ignorant towards me. You guys can figure out where this is going. Regarding my gut at the time, guess she got heavily intoxicated one night. I received a phone call around 2 to 3 a.m. When I answered, a guy was talking, told me him and his friends found her passed out in the bar and called me after unlocking her phone. I went and got her and broke up with her couple days after. Story 8. Because I was too chicken shit to get a divorce because I was wildly unhappy and too proud to go to therapy to fix the marriage. So I cheated, got caught, and have since been to a ton of therapy and am getting a divorce. Even though I'm happy to have this relationship in my rear view, cheating is my life's biggest regret. Story 9. Okay, this happened like 20 years ago with an ex. I was around 22 years old, young, gay, and he was around 40, I think. The age gap was something that always rubbed me the wrong way. I was constantly doubting the relationship. Even kind of broke up a few times because of it. But then we came back together. We had been together like for 4 months by then. One night at the club, with some friends, I decided that if I was constantly doubting it, it was because it was something that I wasn't okay with, and decided to break up with him. He wasn't with me that night, so I decided to tell him the next day. Since I was already at the club and was going to break up with him, I thought it wouldn't matter if I met someone new and I did make out with one of the club dancers and then went to his place and had sex and everything. It wasn't until the next day morning, sobered up, that I realized I didn't want to break up with him. And even worse, I also realized that meant I had just cheated on him. Felt awful. I called him later during the day, told him everything while crying, assuming he'd just break up with me. But instead he told me to meet somewhere public. He brought me a gift and told me he was okay with it. He understood what I was feeling, and it's just things that happen. I was confused by the reaction. We were together for a few months more and then he broke up with me XD. Can't blame him. I was a horny mess by then. Ran into him a few times at some parties and things were okay. He never stopped being nice to me, which I appreciate. Story 10. I've never cheated, but my ex was a sex addict who ended up going to prison. There were so many excuses, blame shifting, pleas for forgiveness, therapy, etc. Until finally, he hit rock bottom and admitted to a sex addiction. He ended up joining SA, Sex Addicts Anonymous, and I ended up joining COSA, a 12-step group for people whose lives have been affected by another person's compulsive sexual behavior. It completely changed my life and made me realize that there are people who cheat for one reason or another, and then there are people who cheat because it's their addiction. So it doesn't need a why. I thought I'd mention it here just in case somebody out there needs to see it. Story 11. My ex had 2 affairs and lied to me about it for a long time. Made me feel insane for thinking they cheated, even though they did, and I turned to alcohol dependency. I was so far gone in this spiral of drinking and thinking about how I was made to feel crazy that I actually went crazy. I think I cheated out of spite. To feel something. Maybe because I was a shell and wanted to be theatrical about it. It meant nothing to me really, and I deeply regret stooping to my ex's level even though I wasn't in my right of mind. I still did it, and gotta own up to it. I'd never do it again though. I wouldn't have done it if the mental abuse and infidelity on their part didn't happen either. Story 12. Wife of 7 years cheated on me about a month ago, out of the blue. For me, I was blindly in love, blind to the signals and the details. 2 children, house, everything. She was the love of my life. She destroyed me. I've been battling the ever-increasing urge to go out and have meaningless sex with a friend of hers, with a family member of hers, or with my ex, which she despises with her guts. I know that if I write to any of those 3 girls, chances are they are going to let me have their way with them. Her friend always has sent me the looks, same as her cousin. My ex has spent the last 7 years writing me on Facebook about how the minute I divorce, I can call her. I had her blocked her of course, but I have since unblocked her. Last she messaged me was 5 months ago. She divorced her own husband about 6 months ago. I've been going to therapy and I am conscious about what I must and must not do. Today, I found and liked a video from my ex on TikTok. She liked my videos and started following me. I had decided to message her today, but reading this thread is giving me plenty of reasons to not do it. I will try my best to remain strong, faithful to myself, my morals, my principles, to not stoop to my wife's level. Thank you to everyone here that is giving their honest opinions and life experiences. You never know whose life you may be touching with your words. To past cheaters, apologize from the bottom of your heart. Apologize, leave nothing back, and disappear. You will never understand the damage you have done, but your sincere and complete admission of guilt and apology will do good for both you and your ex-partner. Story 13. He was an abusive piece of shit. Would threaten me all of the time with various shit. He then cheated on me multiple times and called me crazy for accusing him of such things. We talked all of the time about how I felt. The problem was he had a kid that I grew really attached to. Obviously, if I left, I would never see them again. And when I did break up with him, it was a fucking disaster because he would never leave me alone and I was weak. It was a vicious cycle. And honestly, he never wanted to have sex with me. Probably because he was getting it from someone else. We also talked a lot about it. I was in therapy for so long during that relationship. I met someone who I felt really valued me. He never lied to me. He always was around when I called. I don't regret cheating. I know it hurt him, and I don't care. I broke up with him then. He of course tried everything he could to get me back. Not because he loved me, but because he could control me. The worst part for me was when he called me with his kid. I almost broke down. But the guy I cheated on him with was with me every step of the way. Never got angry when I would have panic attacks about it. Never scolded me for small things. Honestly, me cheating probably saved my life. The guy I cheated with and I've been together for almost a decade, and married for 5 of those years. Never cheated ever again. Story 14. My current husband is who I cheated with. Long backstory summed up. My current husband and I met at 14 and he was the first person I slept with. He was running wild during his high school years, early 20s, and would not let himself date me because he knew he'd fuck it up. We talked on and off throughout the years. After I had my daughter and got cheated on, he actually messaged me one day and basically told me that he'd always been in love with me. I had always felt the same exact way about him, but never said it. I did not think he felt that way and was really surprised. Nothing really happened at that point, but a few years later, I kept telling my husband I was unhappy, couldn't forgive him, didn't want to be with him. He wasn't really open to divorce at that point, and I was done. My current husband messaged me randomly to tell me I was in a dream he had the night before. We pretty much started talking every day from that point on. I lived in a different state, so we FaceTimed a lot and I got my plans together to move back to my home state, file for divorce, etc. I did make a trip to see him, twice, while I was getting things set up, and the first time, I think we had sex 9 times in like 24 hours. I felt guilty, but I also had already told my husband I wanted to divorce and he wasn't accepting, and I was no longer physical with him. I had an interview in person up here for a job a few weeks after and stayed in a hotel with him for a few days. After that, I moved back with my kids. Ex moved back up here with his parents. I filed for divorce, and we were then officially together. I honestly don't regret it. I am so in love with my husband, and he is so in love with me. It took a lot of years and a lot of ups and downs for us to finally get to be together. Story 15. Wife of 7 years cheated on me about a month ago. Out of the blue, for me, I was blindly in love, blind to the signals and the details. 2 children, house, everything. She was the love of my life. She destroyed me. I've been battling the ever-increasing urge to go out and have meaningless sex with a friend of hers, with a family member of hers, or with my ex, which she despises with her guts. I know that if I write to any of those 3 girls, chances are they are going to let me have their way with them. Her friend always has sent me the looks, same as her cousin. My ex has spent the last 7 years writing me on Facebook about how the minute I divorce, I can call her. I had her blocked her, of course, but I have since unblocked her. Last she messaged me was 5 months ago. She divorced her own husband about 6 months ago. I've been going to therapy and I am conscious about what I must and must not do. Today, I found and liked a video from my ex on TikTok. She liked my videos and started following me. I had decided to message her today, but reading this thread is giving me plenty of reasons to not do it. I will try my best to remain strong, faithful to myself, my morals, my principles, to not stoop to my wife's level. Thank you to everyone here that is giving their honest opinions and life experiences. You never know whose life you may be touching with your words. To past cheaters, apologize from the bottom of your heart. Apologize, leave nothing back, and disappear. You will never understand the damage you have done, but your sincere and complete admission of guilt and apology will do good for both you and your ex-partner. To wannabe future cheaters, don't grow a pair. Finish your relationship first, then go out with the other person. To people in my situation, keep reading this thread, learn and process. I know it's hard. I feel a wrench in my chest, imagining my wife as the protagonist of every single situation posted here. It's been a month for me. Maybe I will fail tomorrow, but understand the best is to really move on, heal our broken hearts, and be truly ready for our next adventure.